This is a Defocus Media production.
Audio Jungle.
What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Darryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Darryl Glover. Super excited to be back in business with my partner in crime, the lovely Dr. Jennifer Lyerly. Jen, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing so great because, Darryl, we are talking about a podcast topic that I'm really excited about. But you know how much I love nerding out into the science of different chemicals and how it affects the eyes. So when I heard that we were doing this topic, I could not wait to record this one with you. And as always, when we record our most nerdy topics, it is going to be so much fun for you guys to learn the science with us.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it because, as you know, I'm officially above the big 4-0, and this topic actually resonates with me probably a little bit more than you, Jen, but I'm super excited to learn a little bit more about it. That way I can go into that exam lane and change the game for my patients and make an impact to society. So what do we have up on the topic for today, Jen?
All right, we know our patients and Darryl, emerging presbyopia, want solutions to presbyopia above and beyond our glasses and our contact lenses. We were all so excited when a presbyopia eye drop came to market. And then, I'm not going to lie, optometrists have been rather disappointed with the results and the risk factors that were involved. But hey, we're here to talk about a brand new presbyopia eye drop that is not pilocarpine. So that in and of itself is the big buzzword that you guys need to know. And we have an expert in that molecule here with Dr. Marc Odrich. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you both. And you're both too young. I'll tell you, when you get north of 60, it's really becomes a personal quest. So as you may see from this head of hair, that's the 60 plus head of hair. And that's where it becomes critical to figure out a way to read and function.
So Dr. Odrich, man, super excited to have you on the podcast today because, again, I'm a presbyope. I can't even say that I'm a pre-presbyope. I am officially there, my friend. So this conversation, I appreciate
Welcome
you,
to the
man.
club.
Well, I'm happy to be a part of the club. And, you mentioned earlier, you were talking about, that 60 plus and having gray hair. Well, what about no hair? So what does that make me, like 90 years old, my friend?
Yeah, no. You don't count. You got to get it white. Your beard is going to go white. You've got the hair. It's just on the bottom side.
So, if I raise my chin, man, you might be able to catch me there a little bit.
I see it.
Right?
You got a little bit.
But hey, man, super excited to have you on the show. Before we get too far along and get all this rich information, I'd love to just get a little bit of a background of who you are.
Sure.
Because we may have someone out there that may not know all the amazing work that you do and don't know that you fly all across the world educating eye care professionals on how to be great. So maybe give us a background. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your family and where you practice currently as well, if you don't mind, my friend.
So I grew up in New York. I actually am a Bronx native. Interestingly, my next door neighbor was Eliot Spitzer. So the ex-governor of New York and I grew up together, literally right next to each other. And the schooling was all in New York. I was a Columbia grad. I never wanted to leave, loved the jazz life in New York. My father's a jazz musician, so I would spend a lot of time going down to jazz clubs. And one of the favorite people for my dad was a fellow jazz man, who's this guy called Charlie Kellman. And so Charlie was the inventor of phaco, and he used to come over to our house and they'd play music together. And I knew him as Uncle Charlie. He literally spent all the time. So, every now and then he would, show a video and they would do the music together for the video. And then back then there was no digital video. It was all tapes and things like that. And so I watched a lot of phaco and I thought it was pretty cool because there was no blood and I was a real wimp. I didn't want to see blood. And I loved the idea that, here was surgery with no blood. That's way cool. So I went to medical school only because I wanted to be an eye doctor. They kept telling me, look over here. I was like, no, I don't want to see the blood. And so, and then I got seduced by Dr. Stephen Trokel, who told me point blank that I had to start playing with lasers. And he and I were laser buddies. He was really my mentor. And he and another gentleman, both at Harkness Eye Institute, Fran Lesperance, were incredibly supportive. And we played with lasers. And my claim to fame was I was the one who figured out that you could not use the excimer laser to make radial cuts, because the cuts really didn't work the way. They weren't crush injuries, they're photodisruptive, and so the tissue's removed, and that's a fundamental difference. I was just an idiot. I just thought you could make cuts, and cuts are cuts, and look how pretty. It didn't work. Ron Kruger, who was the year below me, figured it out and said, no, let's make lamellar things. And I thought that was stupid, because that was a lot of work and seemed like an awful lot to go to, but he was right, and we all worked together and got the excimer approved. I was the medical director for VIZZ. I am the one who wrote all the trials, and I am the one who got it all through the FDA and ran all the trials. And that was kind of my start. And then I stayed in New York for up until 2016. I was at Columbia for a while, and then in private practice for a while. And then I moved down to Virginia. So I'm now in Charlottesville, Virginia, at the University of Virginia. I am their laser vision dude. And the background that you see, which is what it looks like when sunset, which is something I never saw in the Bronx. So, you've come a long way, baby. That's basically the drill here.
Well, hey, Jen, I don't know about you, but that is pretty amazing what I just heard. So I know this conversation is going to be next level for sure.
It's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun.
About what you do with LENZ Therapeutics, because you are really leading the way with the new frontier that also doesn't involve blood, which we really appreciate as optometrists.
That's right. No blood. Well, it's really interesting, because Jerry Horn and Lee Nordin had this really important idea and breakthrough that using physiologic miosis, and that's really important, is using the eye's own ability to myose rather than what I do surgically, whether it's putting in a camera inlay or an IOL, to have the eye decide where that pupil goes and just constrict it. It's very interesting, because the line of sight is really critical, and the pupils myose generally around the line of sight until they get tiny, and then they may occlude the line of sight. But really, using a physiologic miotic pupil, the patient's own, seemed to be just a great way to treat. And my interest in this stemmed from two things. One, multifocal corneal laser shapes, which I played with a whole bunch in the late 90s and early 2000s. That was one way to try and get patients to get their presbyopic complaints fixed. And the other one was monovision, which I actually got approved through the FDA. And monovision, that was a fascinating discussion with the FDA, because their concerns were all about depth perception and activities of daily living, and what it meant to have really good monovision. And we spent a lot of time doing a lot of testing. That protocol and that study was just a labor of love to try and get that through the agency. And to their credit, I must tell you, they helped us every step of the way. It was their vision scientists. It was a wonderful collaborative effort. We would have discussions about how could I help them feel comfortable. So I've always found the FDA, wonderfully helpful and supportive. I would say that's a highlight of my career. It's been since the mid-90s. And I see those folks all the time, whether it's Bruce Drum, Wiley Chambers. These people are all, we see each other and talk a lot about different things. So I think it's wonderful. And it's also probably not very well appreciated how interested they are in new technology and how much they appreciate writing protocols and bringing things into science, real science. So I've always been incredibly impressed with the FDA.
Well, I love getting this fuller background, because we're talking about a presbyopia eye drop, but I see the refractive surgery background. That really is the mindset coming behind here, and all the things
Absolutely.
that have been explored and that have pros and that have cons. And then it brings to mind the current presbyopia eye drop available to us in the United States, which is pilocarpine. It has pros and it has cons. So let's talk a little bit about some of those cons, because that's going to really set the framework of why aceclidine is different.
Yeah. So again, putting aceclidine aside, let's pretend we didn't have it. Pilocarpine has some really significant side effects. And as I think everybody knows, it's really the motion of the lens iris diaphragm moving forward, which is what pilocarpine does by really stimulating the ciliary muscle, you wind up with patients becoming much more myopic. And there's some great data showing about 2% pilocarpine and 3% carbachol, and they induce about a diopter to a diopter and a quarter myopic shift. So just imagine for a second, you or I are in the room, and we're sitting there with a -2, and she is telling us that she has to take her glasses off now. She's 58 years old, and everything that she does all day long with her iPhone is look at it and say, gosh darn it, I can't see it. And she's doing this all day long. And, now telling her that, okay, if you use this drop, we can get your pupil to a place where you'll read, but now you need new distance glasses. And oh, by the way, your vision in the distance is going to be worse because you're now a -3. So those two things are going to be very problematic for pilocarpine. And that's not a science experiment or anything. That's just real life. That's the problem with the drug. So you have two choices. Choice number one is to use a little bit of pilocarpine to constrict the pupil, not below 2, where if you look at the Raleigh limit, it's the steep part of the defocus curve, or the depth of focus. You're kind of at a very mild improvement, and you'll induce a little myopia. So that's going to limit your population. It's going to mean that -2 is not who you're going to give it to. You're going to give it to the +0.5 to +3/4 who can afford to take a little bit off. And then, so the drug itself determines really who the population is. And that can be a problem. And I think it has been a problem, to be honest. So that's the problem we see with pilocarpine. It's really two things. One, it's the side effect that you're going to see, which is the myopia induction. And the other one, which has been a big problem for all pilocarpine, is duration. I mean, it just doesn't last very long. Glaucoma, it was 4 times a day. I don't think you're going to get a lot of presbyopes who are going to get excited about every 3 or 4 hours running to the bathroom to put a drop in. That's kind of antithetical to the purpose, right? The purpose is to be as functional and free of crutches, if you will, for as long as possible.
I think we've probably seen this playing out in our own practice, Darryl, where, we were all so excited. I had all my patients geared up to try this drop, and it worked for some people, but then, they did not maintain the drop use because they were finding they had to use it more than they had intended or expected. And then, of course, because of the side effect profile, it is at a very low concentration, which means it's going to have a lower reaction time. So it was a fine balance with pilocarpine to get something to work. And I think there's a lot of room in this category of drop because there has been an underwhelming performance for a pilocarpine-based drop in most patients. Darryl, have you had similar?
Yeah, I mean, very similar. I mean, the one thing I am thankful for when we have this conversation is that it's a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because previously it was what? Glasses, contacts, refractive surgery. That's all that was on the table. Right. But now, with pilocarpine being a part of the conversation, it's kind of like the starting point. And now there are other options out there that we're jumping into this evening that can really help to elevate, our patients' lives more than anything. And it seems like that is pretty promising. So, super excited to dig into that and learn more about this mechanism as well.
Yeah. And don't forget, we live in a little bit different age than when I was alluding to my cataract experience. Today, it's very common for patients to come in and say, 15, 20 years ago, I had LASIK or PRK. Yes. And those patients are really interesting because they had bad vision. They spent money to get good vision. They hopefully got good vision, and most of them do. I mean, that's the really nice part. 97 to 98% of people who have LASIK are satisfied. That's well documented. And when I say satisfied, they have really good vision, and they maintain it for 7 to 10 years. And then what happens? Little nuclear sclerosis creeps in, right? A little bit, and they get -1/4, -1/2, -3/4, and now driving's getting a little tough. Well, if you were operated on between the ages of 18 and 22, when you hit 40s, you're about at -1/2 to -3/4 in a normal nuclear sclerotic eye. And imagine you put a drop in and two things happen. your distance vision gets better, and you can read. That's magic. And that is to me the quintessential factor here. And it's one of the reasons we treated patients with PRK and LASIK, is I wanted those patients, and I wanted to hear their patient reported outcomes, which we're digging into right now in getting ready for our NDA. But it's really remarkable. I've heard interviews, I've talked to a bunch. It is exactly what you and I would think, which is what a wonderful opportunity to turn to them. Imagine, you may co-manage them, you may have patients that you send to your favorite LASIK surgeons, and they come to you 10, 12 years later, and now you have something where that $7,000, $6,000, whatever $1,000 operation, you just turn the volume back up on it.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a game changer, man. I mean, to be able to become David Copperfield in the exam lane,
absolutely,
man.
absolutely.
I'm running.
And imagine,
because
doing it. Yeah, I mean, imagine just doing it. So you can put the drop in and put them outside and say, okay, and they'll come in reading their phone. I mean, it's astonishing. I mean, they're literally saying, I can see the phone. I can see the phone. So it really, a lot of things are different. Remember that when we had pilocarpine, I didn't have cell phones back then, and we didn't have LASIK or PRK. It's a different world and a much faster world, honestly. Things happen quickly. So I think all those things move. And I think Jen, you said the most important thing, which is it's not bad that Pilo came out. In fact, I'm very used to that. When VIZZ came out, VIZZ was not number one in the market. We were number two in the market. Summit was number one in the market. And they really spent a lot of time and effort kind of figuring out what the market looks like and what it needs. So I don't see any problem with having somebody come in. I think it's important that they don't disappoint. And if they do disappoint, it's my job to make sure we figure out why and what we can do to make sure we don't disappoint. Both patients and practitioners. They're two different groups, and they both need different things.
Well, just to kind of spell all this out for everybody, Aceclidine. I did it wrong, Darryl, again. Okay.
Oh, you're fine. I have half my office says Aceclidine. Say Aceclidine. Listen, I'm still getting to teach them presbyopia versus presbyopia. So, we know what you're talking about, Jen. It's cool.
So we've spelled out a lot of pearls here. Just to kind of dial it home for everybody in the audience, we've got Aceclidine, we've got pilocarpine. Aceclidine is really achieving that pinhole pupil effect, that less than 2 millimeter pupil size. And because of that when we have a pinhole, Darryl, we expect all vision to improve, distance and up close. So it's great to hear, yes, the big part of this is the distance vision is also improving for our patients. Yeah. But distance vision is also improving because it's not causing a myopic shift, because it's not acting on the ciliary muscle.
Yeah, pupil selective ciliary sparing, that's what we call it. And again, I mean, you've seen slides. We have slides on our website, and you can look at the amount of, I never say it doesn't touch the ciliary. It has a minimal effect on the ciliary muscle. I think it's important. This is we're in an age, thank goodness, where we understand receptors and how the muscarinic receptors work. And I think if you get really kind of nerdy about it, you can go look at where there are a lot of muscarinic receptors and which ones favor an aceclidine versus which ones favor an iris sphincter. I think they're important things to kind of focus on. And there's some great papers that have spent really, 5-6 years figuring out where all these little kind of receptors are located. And ours really seems to spare the ciliary muscle for the most part. And it really tickles very strongly on the iris sphincter. And that's really mechanistically the key here, is to understand those two components and then understand the fallout from those two components. As I mentioned, the ciliary muscle really, if you contract the ciliary muscle and you're going to go ahead and focus on the LENZ iris diaphragm and what it does, which will very clearly induce myopia. Now, myopia is not a terrible thing if you're slightly hyperopic, because you kind of get the both worlds. You get your distance vision a little better, and hopefully, and you also get a little bit of a pinhole effect, but not a true pinhole. And I think that's really the kind of separation. And you really do have to look at that Raleigh limit. That Raleigh limit curve, it's exponential starting at 2. Before 2, it's very linear. It doesn't give you a lot of bang for the miosis, if you will. It's really the sub 2 millimeter pupil where you start to see a diopter and a half, 2 diopters of depth of focus gain. That's what you need. I mean, and the thing I'll share with you is that the more presbyopic you are, the better it works.
Wow.
That's astonishing.
Our eyebrows just shot way up on that comment.
Yeah. I mean, and that to me, and that is absolutely astonishing, is you actually see more lines of gain with the worse presbyopes, the older presbyopes. It kind of makes a little sense, because what I'm telling you is true, they've got the most to gain. So if a pinhole is doing what it should, and we're not causing myopia, my gosh, it should work that way. You know,
Jen, you know, I'm over here just lighting up, because I'm thinking about my patients that are in that 48 plus club, and I'm trying to fit with the multifocal soft contact lens. And I'm
every
having
other product we have works less with each increasing age. Exactly. So this would be a complete
topsy-turvy, right? And we treated -4 to +1 with up to 2 of cylinder, and we treated pseudofakes. So we had, as long as they were mono, not multifocals, we treated them. And, you know, we have the data. We're going through the data now. I don't have any reason to expect they did worse. It's a pinhole, guys. And, you know, what does each one of us do when we have a patient who comes into the office? We check them uncorrected. And then the next thing I do is I shove a pinhole in front of them. And I want to know where we're headed. That's how it works. And so you're basically shoving a pinhole in front of these patients and giving it to them and say, go home with it.
How many times have you had patients be like, can I just take do you have glasses like these?
Absolutely. Well, and you get on Amazon and you can buy the pinhole.
I know. I was like,
I don't know about you guys, but I do have patients who come in with those, and I mean, they look
oh my goodness.
They're crazy. The drop is way better. Let's do drop.
Well, I think so, but you know, I have a different interest.
So we touched on size. We know size matters. We know we have the right drop for that. But something else that I've seen in the literature is the importance of having a preservative-free drop. I'd love for you to expand on that, because I'm curious why that was so important with this new therapy, with this new opportunity that's in front of us.
So the three of us, Lenore Dan, Jerry Horn, and myself, are corneal and refractive surgeons. And, you know, when I'm not playing an eye doctor doing refractive surgery, I'm playing an eye doctor who deals with ocular surface disease and limbal stem cell damage and chronic use of a drug. I mean, I hope we've gotten beyond that stage. And if we can do something without VAK in particular, you know, I think that really behooves us to bring that to market. And so Jerry, to his credit, he's a chemist. Jerry Horn is responsible, by the way, for Lumify. So this is the same guy who thought up Lumify. He is fantastic. I could spend, he's in Chicago, I'm in Virginia, and we get on the phone and it can go on for hours and hours. And, you know, what about this? What do you think about this? And it's always been that way. It's been 25 years of that with Jerry. And he, you know, he understood. I mean, he was pretty clear. The Holy Grail is a chronic use drop that doesn't have VAK. And so the formulation was manipulated. It is a proprietary formulation. It is very specific to help and assist in this drug and make sure that we have extended duration, but that we're not damaging limbal stem cells, that we're not causing with chronic use. And again, we've asked these patients, they're talking about using it 5 to 7 days a week. Imagine a drug 5 to 7 days a week from age 45 to 65, 20 years. No way we want to see BAK in those eyes.
Right.
So that's really the key. And then making sure everything else is benign, and making sure that we really have a formulation where people, we haven't even discussed Darryl tolerability, making sure the side effects are not that bad. We had ocular side effects, as every drug does. And that's the beauty of having really good safety data, is we know what those are. Hundreds and hundreds of patients have used this drop for 6 months. And what you see patients who complain about some mild stinging and burning, mild, when you put it in. Some dimness. Now, the dimness is really interesting. I didn't mention this to you, but we had them instill it bilaterally. So our view was dominant eye, non-dominant eye, didn't matter. A pinhole's a pinhole. It should work. It works in 15 to 20 minutes. And if you take a 4.5 millimeter pupil and you shrink it down to 1.5 to 1.75, which is really at about half an hour where everybody was, and I mean everybody, 233 out of 234 were right there. And that's what we wanted. Okay, that's by design. But the experience is, hey, the lights got a little dimmer. Didn't stop anybody from using it, right? They were using it, but they said, hey, it's a little dimmer. And then they neuro adapt. And they say, oh, it's fine. Just like when you walk in a dark room, at my age, I get up at night to go to the bathroom. I can't find the freaking bathroom. So, I'm walking around and then all of a sudden I can see. So,
I love this explanation to our patients when we explain this. So it's like, oh, your pupil size, this drop works so fast.
Correct.
It's like we walked
That's
in
right.
from being outside in the bright light.
But Jen, that's the whole purpose of a good trial. I want to make sure that you don't have any surprises. Just like with the laser, just like with the other drugs, the key is for you to say, yep, it's right here. It's in the book. It says it in the PI, the patient, the package insert. It says it right here. And that's exactly what we're working on. So you can know and say, oh, yeah, they complained of headache. It didn't last very long, tends to go away. And that's all true, all true. So again, very tolerable, very well tolerated by patients. And more importantly, I think you'll have a really good feel because it's such a broad range of patients. Pseudophakics, post-LASIK patients, -4, +1, 2 of cylinder. Wow. Yeah. I mean, who am I not describing? And by the way, iris color doesn't seem to make any difference with this drug, which is really interesting. We're looking at that. That's still kind of a discussion item for us, but doesn't really seem to have much of an effect.
We're teasing a lot of this clinical trial data. Don't worry, we're going to be back with more content on this for everyone listening.
Lots of listen. I don't normally have these bags. I just stay up all night with my clinical team going through all this data. It's a ridiculous amount of data. I mean, just to give you an idea, it's over 30,000 patient days of use.
Wow.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Y'all have a lot of work that y'all are doing right now, but you also had a really strong presence at Optometry's meeting. And as I was going up the escalator, I saw the line of KOL faces that are near and dear optometrists to our hearts talking about this product. So you got a lot of buzz right now. Is there a timeline of where we might see an Aceclidine product coming to market?
So late 2025 is, hopefully when you and I are going to have another conversation, and I'm going to be super jazzed, and we'll say, okay, well, let's get this show on the road. Let's do this. I think it's very exciting. I think it's also very important because I think the one thing is my patients and your patients are in those chairs looking for something better. That's really the driver, right? When you see as a patient come into your office and they're not just looking for glasses when they're 45 or 50 years old. They don't want to sit there with transition lenses, with bifocals and deal with that. They don't want to deal with any of this. And this is, Darryl said it, it's just, look there. It's a new opportunity. And if we can make it as seamless for you, as pain-free, if you will, in the communication and the expectation, that's what we're aiming at. And our marketing group is also, focused on the same thing. So highly focused on delivering product. We have some sayings that are very obvious and most people will laugh and say, but it's true. You always want to underpromise and overdeliver. That's the key, right? I mean, it's like when you get a new car. When you get in that new car and you say, wow, this is fantastic. I didn't think I was going to get all this for whatever I paid. Well, that's what we want to do.
That's for sure the goal for presbyopia drop market right now, because Some of us are a little gun shy, and like this conversation is changing my mind. I'm ready to embrace this, and so I'm thrilled.
I'll give you a.
Well,
So that's
Jen,
exciting.
I'm excited. I mean, as eye care professionals, we're in a time where there's a lot of opportunity at our fingertips, a lot of innovation, and it's up to us to have this conversation and be educated with our patients so that they know that we're going to set them up for success. And I just love that this is selfish of me, this is happening because I'm right in the mix. And at
You're right there. Right.
Magic
Exactly. I mean, hey, listen, what are you, -4, -450? That's what the glasses look like. I'm telling you, you can put this on and get rid of the glasses completely.
Well, the only other side is, my wife does think I'm pretty sexy with my glasses. So I don't know if
You
I
can still wear them.
I got plain old lenses, right?
That's right.
Well, and I think what's also powerful about having a presence already, having optometrists talking about this it's so great to the patients we're seeing this year to tell you, I've got something coming. I'm excited about it. This is something the next time you come in for your exam, I'm hoping to have for you. Because what better way to get your patient in for their eye exam next year? So come on, guys. Like, this is something, even if we don't have it yet, it doesn't hurt to be talking about what's coming in the very near future to drive the reason why. Like, why are they coming for eye exam? If I'm just going to tell them about readers, that's not useful. So this is part of us to be having this conversation, even as the technology is in development.
Yeah. And I think it's the other thing is, and I hope it comes across, is it's data. That's it. It's a new molecule and it's defining the data. We can get as excited as we want, but the data is really what, to me, is flipping the switch. When people start to sit down and look at what I'm talking about, when we're talking about 71% at 3 hours have a 3-line gain with less than 5 letters of distance vision loss, 5 or fewer actually, that's, there's nothing out to deliver.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. I know everyone's so excited to keep learning more.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. And everyone out there that's listening, stay healthy, stay positive, and stay blessed. And until next time, peace. Hey, family. If you enjoyed this full podcast, don't miss out on more engaging content. Check out the next episode right here. And for the latest updates, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means the world to us. Catch us in the next episode. Peace.